Imagine a novel driven by intense political conflict, where an entire indigenous community faces expulsion from their land. Instead of mounting a final military defense, the community members physically transform into a swarm of ants to move their corn harvest. Parallel to this, a government postman's transformations occur at the peak of a narrative charting the violent expansion of European commercial agriculture. Why would a narrative centered on the fight for physical territory culminate with humans abandoning their humanity, rather than achieving a military victory against their oppressors? The internal logic of these animal forms reveals the specific strategies indigenous cultures use to survive systemic erasure. The architect of this narrative is Miguel Ángel Asturias, and the text is his 1949 masterpiece, Men of Maize, or Hombres de Maize. The novel is highly experimental, intensely ambitious, and notoriously difficult for Western audiences to track. The plot establishes a grim reality. An isolated indigenous community fights to protect their land from outside planters, and they fail. They lose their physical territory definitively. Yet, despite this total material loss, scholarly consensus maintains that the book concludes on what critics call a utopian note. Asturias builds an allegorical framework where cultural survival is measured not by military success, but by the persistence of an indigenous worldview. The allegorical framework begins with the title itself, which refers directly to the central creation myth of the Maya. To the Maya, maize is a sacred origin point. Their creation stories describe the first humans as being crafted from the grain itself. The external threat driving the plot arrives in the form of European expansion and commercial agriculture. Outsiders arrive to clear the landscape and plant crops strictly for profit. These are two irreconcilable paradigms. The indigenous community views the land as a sacred ancestral body. The planters view it as an exploitable commercial grid. The impending conflict is an ontological war aimed at the eradication of an entire worldview. The material resistance against the planters is led by an indigenous leader named Gaspar Ilom. Ilom's military effort is entirely thwarted. The planters assassinate him, and the physical land is lost. But his death produces a paradox. Ilom transcends physical defeat, living on beyond the grave to become an immortal folk hero among his people. This diagram illustrates mythic time. A standard timeline stretches sequentially, but Asturias compresses thousands of years into a single moment. Past, present, and future occur simultaneously. He applies this resistance to the prose itself, using syntax analogous to indigenous languages, rejecting European norms. By making the novel difficult to track, Asturias uses the text's own structure to resist Western literary conventions. The second half of the novel shifts away from the battlefield and focuses on a man named Nicho, who is searching for his lost wife. This character map outlines Nicho's societal role. He works as a government postman. Delivering mail explicitly binds him to European administrative control. His daily labor maintains the network that enables the planters. To escape this grid, Nicho engages in Nahualism, the indigenous belief that a human can assume the shape of their guardian animal. During his quest, he abandons his imperial duties entirely, breaking ties to the state and shapeshifting into a coyote, framing this transformation as an active shedding of imperial structures to reclaim indigenous spiritual autonomy. It is crucial to remember that these concepts, Nahualism and mythic time, belong to a living culture. The cultural identity Asturias depicts is an active experience, continually navigating the threat of modernizing forces. The transformations detailed in the text run parallel to the immense physical labor required to sustain these communities day after day. The magic in Men of Maize functions as an allegorical tool, describing how everyday people endure real-world economic erasure. This matrix decodes how indigenous cosmology survives. The postman turning into a coyote represents an individual's rejection of the state to reclaim spiritual heritage. The community transforming into ants represents the collective physically transporting maize, fulfilling sacred duties even as land is conquered. These animal forms operate as precision narrative mechanisms, deployed to preserve sacred obligations when physical victory becomes impossible. The novel does not shy away from the material cost of this conflict. The planters win the war. European imperialism dominates the physical landscape. As scholar Jean Franco observes, by the novel's end, the magic world of Indian legend has been lost. How can total material loss generate a utopian conclusion? The answer exists within the allegory. The physical geography is stolen, but the internal, cosmological relationship between the people of corn and their sacred origins remains intact. Asturias engineered the novel's complex structure to act as a cultural vault, locking the Maya worldview safely inside the text. He used the format of Western literature against itself to prove that while native traditions are forced to adapt and transform, they refuse to be eradicated. In the face of total material erasure, the survival of the myth acts as the ultimate resistance.